There's limited evidence that any of these actives really work in the first place. This isn't government funding that does all of these clinicals. The clinicals that are done are by the raw material supplier.
What is one skincare myth you wish more people stop believing?
That the more layers, the better. And so many layers of crap. The way it works in the beauty industry is we all buy the same peptides from the same suppliers. You buy matrixyl, you buy argireline, you add like a ceramide and a bok choy extract, and you call it your 5361 peptide complex.
Yes. This is Skin Talks, the podcast where we go deeper than skin, products, and trends and explore the conversations that actually matter in health, beauty, wellness, and confidence.
We're a mother-daughter duo and the founders of Boutique Skin Envie. After years inside the industry, we've learned that health is never just about what you use. It's about everything you digest, how you think, how you live, what you eat, how you move, what you put on your skin, and how you feel in your own body.
If you're looking for insight, honesty, and a fresh perspective on the future of health, beauty, and wellness, you're in the right place.
Let's get into it.
Skin Talks podcast by Boutique Skin Envie, hosted by Beate and Natascha.
Most people think that if a product is on the shelf, it must work. It looks clinical, it lists powerful ingredients, it promises real results. But what if that is not always true? What if the way skincare is formulated, tested, and marketed is very different from what consumers actually believe? Today, we're joined by cosmetic chemist Alec Batis, who has spent over 30 years developing skincare at companies like Pfizer, L'Oreal, and Shiseido. He is now the co-founder of Sweet Chemistry, which focuses on regenerative science in skincare. Today, we're discussing what really happens behind the scenes in the skincare industry, the gap between science and marketing, and what it takes for a product to truly deliver results. Welcome to Skin Talks, Alec. Alec, welcome to the episode for today. Before we get started into how you ended up in your career path, can you please give us a little bit of a background of yourself so our listeners can understand who they are chatting with today?
Okay, sure. My name's Alec Batis. I'm co-founder of Sweet Chemistry, a laboratory skincare. I started as a chemist in 1990 for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals and QC, then moved on to L'Oreal R&D, claim substantiation, value analysis, a value analysis chemist, and then the opinionated chemist, as they used to call me, got moved to marketing, where I learned. Yes, apparently there's very few of us who've actually been sort of switched over to marketing. It's usually not the common mix. But when the marketers came out to the lab, I would always sort of tell them exactly what to say and how to say it and who what to put my formulas in. And so someone noticed and decided to give me a shot at marketing. And luckily I didn't have to go get the MBA thing because I tried the GMAT test prep once and I failed miserably.
Okay.
So luckily they just switched me. And I learned a lot about marketing and positioning and how you can, take any kind of formula and say sort of anything you want about it and convince the outside world, of how the same formula, it could be positioned very differently, which was fascinating to me. It's like part of this sort of human, understanding human nature almost, right? And then moving head of, and then I ended up going to Victoria's Secret Beauty when they started beauty, and I was Body by Victoria, third employee, did Body by Victoria. I'm still repenting for the sins that I committed there in terms of the whole time was, I retouched, made sure that all those girls were retouched within an inch of their life, all parts of their body, their faces, their noses, their hips, their breasts, their everything. Because in the 90s, we all bought into this idea of what we thought was Barbie for perfection.
Yeah.
And even the supermodels weren't perfect. Like they were like, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. We need to change this. What's wrong with her, right? And I've done a lot of therapy since, and I'm like, oh, I think a lot of us in the industry, as beauty experts, really steered everyone in a really unfortunate direction, which we're kind of like trying to go back on now that we know more. But back then it was the days of supermodels, Manolo Blahniks, power lunch. Like it was very over the top in the 90s, and we all drank the Kool-Aid. We learned a lot since then, and then headed off to NARS to head NARS up from marketing from 2005 to 8. Sort of what I call the NARS heyday, where NARS is really about artistry. And then with that experience, I just took R&D experience plus marketing experience. And I was consulting ever since.
Mm. Okay. So how long has it been since you started your own company, Sweet Chemistry?
I started maybe, I think about 4 years ago is when I sort of met Alex Bio. What happened is I was consulting, very happy, 55 at the time, thinking, okay, at this point, I've paid my dues. I'm consulting. I'm getting decent monthly retainers, right?
Yeah.
And I can have a life now. I can go on vacations. I'm making decent money. It was great. And I met this one client called Alex Bio. They invited me to their lab. This is a couple years ago, it was struck because usually I'm not invited to a lab. Usually, even if it's a science-based skincare line, it's a cute office in Tribeca, and they have the lab coat hanging in the corner with some beakers to take a photo in for social media once in a while. And so I was like, that's odd. There's a lab going to a lab. And then I thought maybe it's one of those beauty labs. You may have heard of Amorous, Debut, and there's some beauty labs, and they make like mushroom exosomes and, buctoid peptides and, all the fun,
Trending.
all the fun trending ingredients, right?
Yeah.
Which I love because I'm a marketer. So why not, right?
Yeah.
We're not curing cancer. So if you can get some hydration from a mushroom exosome, I'm not sure it's healing anything, but why not? So I thought, okay, when I got there, it was the SUNY Downstate Medical Center. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then like one floor is the AIDS vaccine lab and the next floor is the tissue engineering lab. And I'm like, oh, this is something I've never experienced. This is serious. Not that beauty labs aren't serious. It's just a different kind of serious, right?
It's more,
And I was, this age, you kind of think you know it all. I've been through it. I've been in corporate so long, and I'm like a little jaded. You get a little jaded, and I got there, and I was like, "This is what is this?" And I sort of sat down, and I was like, "What am I doing here?" And I met the CSO, Chief Science Officer, Dr. John O'Neill, and he explained to me that they are a spin out of Columbia University's lab for stem cell and tissue engineering, where they are the tissue engineers part. There's stem cell experts in that lab, and then there's tissue engineering experts, right? They spun out of it because they had developed a business, and that business, where the way they make money is they take the extracellular matrix, which is the stuff that surrounds all living cells. It basically sustains cells' life. Extracellular matrix is what has the collagen, elastin, fibronectin, the hyaluronic acid, all that stuff, which they thought in the past was just structural. It just kept the tissue structured, but they've realized that this is what is actually sustaining the cell's life. So they're experts in that. What they do is they take the extracellular matrix from all sorts of different organs, diseased and non-diseased. They reduce them down into what they call hydrogels, ECM hydrogels, and then they sell that to pharma around the world so that pharma can test their drugs. It's called drug discovery. That pharma can test their drugs in the correct environment, in the correct organ, within the correct disease. So that's their money making. And then they have about 8 research projects. And they were explaining to me that 2 of them related to the reason why they invited me to the lab. They said they invited me to the lab because they said they had heard that I was in R&D, that I understood science. And at the same time, they heard that I had sort of gotten quite far in marketing so that I knew how to sort of present sort of challenging science concepts to the public.
Yeah.
So he explained to me the two research projects. By the way, he's so cute. He's just so cute. So he explained to me the 2 research projects. One was during lung surgery, lung tissue gets punctured very easily. It's very fragile. I'm learning a lot, by the way. It's really, I love it because I'm learning something at the same time. I'm by no means a regenerative medicine expert.
Yeah.
I'm learning along with the rest of us. But they explained to me that this tissue gets punctured very easily. And when that happens, it's a 60% mortality rate. So what they had developed along with their partners at Vanderbilt, like Vanderbilt has Dr. Matthew Beate, who's the world's renowned lung transplant surgeon. Together with them, Vanderbilt, NYU Langone, Stevens Technology, and Stanford. It's a team where Alex Bio provides the biomaterials.
Okay.
So what they had done is they created a sealant, a lung tissue sealant that contained what's called matrikine peptides. And the matrikine peptides are derived from actual healthy lung tissue. So they take the lung tissue ECM, they reduce them down into these matrikine peptides, which is what happens in nature. ECM degrades, matrikine peptides are created, and then they signal new tissue growth. That's just nature. That's just biology. Matrikines with an I. So they took lung matrikines, put it into a sealant, and then they showed gene expression that it was helping to heal the lung tissue when it got punctured. Full disclosure, these are animal testing. I try to in medicine, animal testing exists. I try to be very transparent with that. But they had clinical success, and now they're moving into human trials on that. And then the other research project that they said was sort of related to what this was about, the matrikine peptides, which to me showed their expertise in regenerative medicine and tissue engineering, was, and this was a famous one, in 2019, cover of New York Times announced they had managed to take a deceased, damaged donor lung. So 3 out of 4 lungs are not suitable for transplant. They're just too damaged. They were able to take one that was refused by all the transplant surgeons across the US, and within 2 days in clinic, they were able to regenerate it to be transplantable.
Oh. Wow.
Fascinating,
Yeah.
amazing. I didn't see it at the time, but when I Googled it, I saw the article and I was like, wow, oh, that's amazing. What also amazes me is that some of these advancements in science, the public never really finds out much about, because our news is so skewed now that we don't even see. That's a whole nother subject, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
I was slightly embarrassed that I didn't even know that about this thing, but I looked it up and I was like, wow. And so what they are now going into are human trials in the second half of this year. And if the human trials go well, they do a compassionate use case human trial, someone who's been kicked off the list, because there's a very long wait list for organ transplant, because there's just not enough healthy organs to go around. So you very easily get kicked off the list. This patient is over 70, and even if you're in perfect health, if you're over 70, you're kicked off. You don't have a chance for any organ. So compassionate use case, a human trial. If this goes well, they'll move into heart, liver, and kidney. And if those go well, that could effectively wipe the organ transplant wait list globally with this technology.
This is incredible.
So I was like, it's nice after being in this industry for so long to kind of, just go a little deeper and be involved in something that's so interesting like this. So I was like, okay, well, what's this got to do with me? I left Pfizer a long time ago and have not kept up. So I was like, what am I doing here? And they were like, well, what they've done is not only extracted the matrikines out of different organ tissue like lung, but they said they had also taken out of other tissue as well. And one of them was the upcycled bovine bone from the food industry. And that's bone that's just thrown away as waste. But in the bone material, high amounts of collagen 1, the bone is known to be the most regenerative organ. They had also taken it from veins and arteries, but that's a whole nother story. And so they'd basically taken from the bone hundreds of these matrikine peptides, and they didn't just have this kind of like beauty type of clinicals of, 89% of women thought their skin was smoother kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was gene expression data and peptidomic size data and penetration data. And like they had mapped over 315 matrikine peptides in this extract. And apparently they believe that there's probably thousands of these peptides. And the way they explained it to me was that they said, look, we've looked at the beauty industry and you've got matrixyl, argireline. We've seen that the beauty industry, I've purchased, the way it works in the beauty industry is we all buy the same peptides from the same suppliers. There's only like a couple people that have their own. You can kind of make a synthetic peptide, not too difficult. You just kind of go in the lab and change things around. But for the most part, we all buy the same ones from these main suppliers. They've been around since year 2000, 25 years. You buy matrixyl, you buy argireline, you add like a ceramide and a bok choy extract, and you call it your 5361 peptide complex.
Yes.
And
You
so
make
it's
it
like
proprietary.
you make it proprietary. You patent the combination of them.
Yeah.
And so it's it's a game that we all played for many years. And there was a time when they didn't have the internet, so nobody knew, right? I mean, communication was like faxing people, right?
Exactly.
So no, you couldn't get that kind of information. So you could kind of, sleight of hand a lot. So when they said to me, look, we've seen that you have these singular synthetic peptides from 25 years ago, but they're like, that the extracellular matrix, matrikines it's like an instruction manual. All these hundreds, if not thousands of peptides that are extracted from this ECM is like a whole instruction manual, right? So what you've done in the beauty industry is taken like half a page.
Yeah.
And then you expect that to create more collagen and all this, like it happens in biology, but you need the whole instruction booklet.
Yeah. So we're only taking
so,
parts, like sentences out of the book.
Exactly. You're taking a sentence and then, they said to me, it's like kind of making a cake. You kind of need if someone just gives you 6 words, how are you going to make a cake? Like, you're not going to be able to make the cake, right?
all the
Like, you need
ingredients.
the whole instructions.
Yeah.
So I thought that was incredibly fascinating, and I'm skin obsessed myself. I went into this industry because I had an overblown sort of self-worth issue. So I've always wanted my skin to look as good as it can, to be as healthy and beautiful as possible until the day I die, obsessively. So that's why I went into the industry. So when I saw these peptides, I was like, I want them. And I thought to myself, if I want them, then I think a lot of people would probably want them. And so they said, can you consult? And I said, well, actually, I'd rather get a small business loan, put my only asset, my apartment in New York City, which I worked many decades to get. And I'm still not paid off, and I haven't saved enough for retirement, but I'm going to put it all in.
So you believe in it
And
so deeply.
that was just it. I was like, I just think this is, they say founders can't help themselves.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just,
Entrepreneurs, yeah.
Yeah.
like, it makes no sense, right? Entrepreneurs, it makes no sense why you would launch a skincare
So much
line in your
risk.
late 50s. So much. I mean, even if the product and the formula and the technology is amazing, it's still a huge risk because the only ones who are really killing it are like, Hailey Bieber in skincare,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Which
Like,
is marketing, which is a lot of marketing, right?
and the great products, like
Yeah.
great products,
Yeah.
hydrating, you know what I mean? All this, but like, you need a huge following to be successful. Like, it's not
Yeah,
about
exactly.
experience
Yeah.
anymore. So it was a little foolish, but the other thing that I brought to the table with this was, okay, I've made my own for the past 36 years, and I think I, and cut me off anytime if I'm going over, but
No, we love it.
okay, good. So this was the biggest part for me. This is not the famous part. The famous part's the peptides, but the part that I really found valuable was, I mentioned I was a VA chemist for the L'Oreal Group in the early 90s. VA value analysis, that means we take a look at when L'Oreal's going to buy a brand, you take a look at all the formulas of the potentially incoming brand to see, are there cost savings in the formula to be had?
Okay. Interesting.
Right? I mean, you want to maximize profit. I mean, once a small company comes into a large, like, you need to pay for people's 401ks and vacations
Yeah.
and, family leave and like all that stuff, right? So you need to make more profit, right? It's a business. It's not a charity, it's a business. So you have to find ways to save cost while still making the formula like beneficial, right? And working. But what we do is when marketing wants a whole lot of, they want to say so many different things. Well, so for example, this was Kiehl's, and in the mid-90s, Kiehl's was a compounding pharmacy. In the 90s, you didn't have all the private label. You wouldn't just go and slap your name on a bottle. You actually formulated. So Kiehl's had formulated their own products. And you can imagine Kiehl's being a compounding pharmacy. Their main business is pharmaceutical, compounding. So like, they had really done a great job of this formula in terms of this, moisturize what's it called? The ultrafacial moisturizer. So taking a look at that formula and some other formulas, there was a lot of cost savings to be had. And what you do is you take some of the raw materials or some of the actives that are very expensive, and you bring them down to what they call marketing levels. And that's like 0.01 or less percent. Bringing down the cost, and then other raw materials like humectants, emollients, etc., you leave at functional levels. This way, you get the clinical results of the hydration. And when you hydrate, your wrinkle depth reduces.
Yes.
Right, because kind of balloon the skin, so you get that. lower, less wrinkles, right? So you get all your clinicals by having the ingredients that sort of go in that direction, but the other actives that really don't do much in an immediate, in like 30, 60 days, some of these other actives are long-term.
Yeah.
Those you bring down to next to nothing, or you add, like, you take the peptide and you make your peptide complex, which means you can put in nothing of the peptide, like 0.0000 whatever, plus the ceramide, plus the extract, you call it your X peptide complex. Then it seems like you have a 5% peptide complex, but nobody knows that the peptide part is like non-existent.
0.00000001.
Exactly. You save money this way in the formula, the company makes more profit, and I get a promotion.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's
Yeah.
very intense.
It's very, very intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not
Yes,
surprised. I'm not surprised.
it's not
Like,
surprising, right?
no.
It's business. And I have to say, I'll say this. There's limited evidence that any of these actives really work in the first place, right? A lot of the clinicals, this isn't government funding that does all of these clinicals. The clinicals that are done are by the raw material supplier.
You're talking about in mass market, like most retail brands have that, right? But
Yeah, most sort of every skincare brand out there, when you buy like the ceramides, the peptides, the different antioxidants, in theory these things work, but there's been no long-term government studies over 30
yeah,
years, half
exactly.
those, like, where they biopsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
The only thing, though, I
like,
wanted to ask you, Alec, is like in brands like, let's say it was known as Jan Marini Skin Research, now known as Marini Skin Solutions, which is more of a medical grade. So you need medical direction to be able to carry it, at least in Canada. They do a lot of clinical studies in the Journal of Dermatology, JDD, I think they call it in the US. So that's a little bit different, right? You're not talking about the same thing. Like some brands out there, they really do peer-reviewed clinical studies that are maybe not government organized, but are more like controlled organized on real patients and real skin.
it is, and it depends on the actual clinical. Sometimes some of those, and I don't know anything about this brand
Yeah.
actually, just sometimes you have to look really deep at the studies too,
Yeah.
because some of them maybe are sort of generalized, say about antioxidants in general, but who knows about on the skin for 30 years, half face,
Yes,
biopsy.
yes.
So like sometimes there's really great studies and then there's extrapolations from that studies. And I will say this, like, I use the stuff. I use all these actives. I'm
Yeah.
a believer.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually saying it's all bullshit. A baloney, I shouldn't swear, but
No, you can
No,
go
you can
ahead.
swear on here.
Just pop off. No, because there is a lot of marketing. There is a lot of
bullshit.
marketing and like false promises and stuff like that. And then there's more real science backed, like when you're using hydroquinone to like brighten and lighten melanin, like sun damage
Yep,
or
yep.
melasma. Like
Totally.
that's it's a little bit different, but we're just talking more mainstream, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I personally think even though the data is limited and a lot of it is from the raw material suppliers, I do think theoretically these things work. I'm just of this school of thought where for me it's the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me it's like from 21 to 57, like it's not, do I look 10 years younger in 4 weeks? Like that's the part I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
ridiculous. But I am like, even if the limited data, there's still evidence that the long-term use, along with a lot of other modalities as well,
Sunscreen.
will help you keep your skin looking as young and healthy and beautiful as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, I'm a
So,
big believer too. I'm a big believer in like just skin hygiene and
Yeah, me too.
just
Yep,
taking
yep.
care, protecting your skin, hydrating your skin, just those basics. We often talk about that, and everything that we do is just, it's good habits to form in your life. It's like eating healthy. It's like how you take care of your body, your
Yeah,
mind,
same.
learning, reading, everything. It all plays a huge impact on your how you age, how your body ages and your health in general.
Let's talk about acne, because it's not just a skin problem, it's an emotional one. And the worst part, most acne products are either too gentle to work or so harsh they destroy your barrier. Zeo Skin Health's complexion clearing program finds the balance. It targets oil, bacteria, and inflammation at the root while protecting the barrier and supporting healing. It was designed by dermatologists, and we've seen it change people's confidence and not just their skin. If you tried anything else and still aren't clear, start here. Use code SKINTALKS15 at bskinenvie.ca. That's BSKINENVIE.ca for 15% off your first order.
Yeah, I find it very interesting what you're saying, because I also find it very unique that you have that R&D science background and you also have the marketing side, and that they kind of picked you out because they knew that you knew how to talk about it and to promote and deliver the message that they were trying to deliver, but from a science background. I think that's really cool. You don't hear about that too often.
Yes, it's helped a lot. It's helped a lot, and sometimes my mind switches back and forth between the two. Sometimes they fight.
Yeah, the two
I
voices,
want to
right?
say this. No, you shouldn't say that, but I want to say that.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes total sense. I want to know from like when you're looking at it because we're talking about ingredients, but out of curiosity for people listening, like when you look at an ingredient list, what are some red flags or things not to look for in the skincare industry? Like what and how do you read an ingredient list? Like can you tell our listeners that?
Let's see here. Okay. So off the top of my head, I'll just say one thing. Um, s- and I always have to be very careful because these are not foolproof ways to analyze an ingredient list. I will always say an ingredient list, like you could have a certain ingredient there. You can buy that ingredient from 10 different suppliers.
Yeah.
One supplier is God knows where that they're, who knows how they're getting that. It's like a tomato. You can either see tomatoes on an ingredient list in a Chef Boyardee can, or like from a organic market in Italy. Like it's like the difference in an ingredient quality is so massively different. And what I will say is, this is what I usually say about ingredient lists. Like I look at the founder, because like I know I've worked with every major supplier. I've seen when a supplier goes downhill, right? They lost their QC. I was QC at Pfizer. The most boring. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's really awful. But
No, just pop off. Just tell us what you really think.
hopefully Pfizer isn't listening. But QC chemists, but just so you know, are kind of the lowest of the rung. I'm going to get into big trouble with QC chemists because it's considered kind of the most, it's not R&D, right? But when I was working at QC for Pfizer, I was like, for a drug called glucotrol for type 2 diabetes, I was like, my job is pretty freaking damn important, because you need to, no matter what the R&D did, this, when it gets to the market, when it gets to these people and they're taking this drug, it's life and death,
Right.
right? So to make sure that you're delivering exactly what it says on the package in terms of quality, is, I think, really critically important. And that's the part that no one cares about in the world of skincare either. I care about where we get each ingredient, what's going on in that company. Are they on top of their QA and QC? How is that when it's traveling around the world to our contract manufacturer? How is the contract manufacturer treating it? Are they putting it, are they doing QC on it right away? Are they keeping it in temperature controlled? Are they, how are they formulating it? Are they leaving it in the kettles for way too long so it's oxidizing before it even gets to my package? If you're a founder that has no clue about any of these things, do you know what contract manufacturers do?
What?
They just keep some crap on the shelf. They throw it all in there, whatever. They get like it's just, it's not.
It's not
And then
controlled.
yeah, I mean, there's SOPs. There's always
Right.
SOPs,
Yes.
for sure. It's just, they're a little relaxed, you know what I mean? And of course, if you're a contract manufacturer and this cute little founder comes in and wants this and this, wants that, where do you think you're going to get some of your extracts from? Do you think
Yeah.
you're going to get the really expensive, non-solvent extracted, made to order extracts? Or are you going to just have a bunch of like stuff on the shelf for private label, so when the cute founder comes in, you just kind of throw all that crap in, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Interesting.
that to me, when I'm looking at, this is what you can't see on an ingredient list, right? Things like what happened the other day was, oh, someone said, oh, we use very little water. And I'll tell you about our formulas in a minute, how water is, related to my formulas. But they were like, we use hardly any water, which means like we give you all this good stuff. And then you look at the ingredient list, and the first is like I forgot what it was, but whatever flour essence, right? And
Okay.
then aqua.
Yeah.
So they basically just replace this flour water with the water so they can say they have less water, right? Like
Yeah.
stuff like there's all sorts of tricks like that. The the phenoxyethanol thing where you can kind of see where the 1% line is, phenoxyethanol being in there if they have it at about 1%, so you can see what's below, what's above.
Yeah.
We put our 1% line, but at the same time, I'm always very careful because any good science-oriented person knows that just because it's over 1% doesn't mean it's any better. Like it's not, more is not better necessarily.
Yeah.
More is better with certain things and less is better with certain things. Like CoQ10 is better at 0.5. So that would be under the 1% line. So like sometimes I'm nervous to sort of give some of these rules of what you should look for, because then people will go, oh, if it's below the 1% line,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
crap,
right.
So there's a lot of
I feel
pitfalls
like there's a
in
lot
that.
of information. Like, how is an average individual looking to get good ingredients? Like, it's just so overwhelming, I feel like, because there's so much, like,
Noise. Lots
yeah,
of
noise and
noise.
so much marketing and this and that. And it's like keywords and all this stuff. It's difficult for an average
The average
consumer
person, yeah.
to want a good brand, but also like
Trust it.
yeah, to trust it and get the good ingredients. So difficult.
It is. It would be it's all difficult for me even
Yeah.
to know when I'm looking. So what I found helps me with that is, so what I find interesting, there's a lot of science-based creators now on social media. And with everyone, you have to sort of take a grain of salt as well. But some of them really sort of go in depth about different technologies, different formulas, and they will sort of give a real measured approach to sort of skincare and skincare formulation. Believe it or not, and I hate to say this, but I've kind of looked at AI as well.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Um,
help.
Perplex Perplexity is one, and, Perplexity is known to sort of utilize sources in a better way. It's more science-based. But all of them, like, I've sort of asked critical questions about different, brands, different products, and AI gets it wrong all the time,
Yeah.
but you do get a sense if you're sort of asking it pointed questions of, like, what is the credibility behind this brand?
Yeah.
What is the credibility behind the founder of this brand? What is the credibility of this certain products compared to other products? And is there anything really proprietary? So what you'll find is, these peptide complexes, everyone thinks, oh, they're proprietary. So that must mean there's a genius behind the scientists and they had a patent. Well, then I'm just like, just to sort of check it, I'm like, is this really proprietary? Are these ingredients that you can't find in any other product? And you'll say, good catch. No, this is a very creative way to just take existing ingredients, put them in a group, call it your own, and then tell the world. And honestly, anyone who does that to the world, I don't care how good your product is, that's sneaky.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, why would you, even if it's a decent product, why would you trust someone who's done such a sneaky little trick,
Yeah.
right? Because how could you trust anything else they do?
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of those products are decently hydrating, great products, but there's something shady about that I just think, yeah. And so
So-
asking AI some of these,
Yeah, I
we
think
have
it's a
our
great
own,
thing. I do the same thing sometimes with full conversations, and I'll challenge things that come back at me, and it's like,
Yep.
yes, you're right.
Yep.
You should look at it this way, or you should look at that way. I think that people want easy solutions sometimes, and they just want to believe. And I talk about this a lot. Like, just get me something that's going to make me look absolutely snatched, healthy, glowing, completely even complexion, glass skin, all the rage, And that's just not
Totally.
a reality. That's just not a reality. But I agree with you then. And you said something before, which I found very interesting also. You said that you can, you know, slap a bunch of ingredients into a jar and then market it the way you want to market it. And that's what I think that we are overloaded with in the beauty industry today, is all this narrative around marketing and making everything seem or appear to be just this miracle product that's going to solve all your problems, and just, prolong your youth for as long as possible and blah, blah, blah. We could go on and on about that, but it is so true. And people, I think more and more people today are looking into checking and fact checking and being more curious about it. We see a lot of that in our food industry,
Yeah. Yeah.
asking questions around like what kind of, eating clean,
What's really in here?
what's in
Yeah.
here, sugars, all the things that are not good for us, but it's all marketing, and it's jobs, and it's a system that is so hard to
Yeah.
break because it's in
Yeah.
such momentum.
Such momentum. You're just sort of a cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
There is something in skincare, I think, the more and more I think about it, that would really change the game
What's
with all
that?
that. So I'll explain. I don't know if you know, but sort of, okay, so you know how I said I was the VA chemist,
Yeah.
right? Able to sort of reduce costs in a formula. Well, at lunch during those times, and what's great is we just got investment actually from the ex-global president of L'Oreal. So when I had to admit to her that in the early 90s, I was at lunchtime making my own.
Okay.
I was hoping that I wouldn't get into trouble.
No.
But as the VA chemist, you think I made product with marketing levels of actives in mind?
Well, it didn't align, right, for you?
No, no, for me personally. So I made my own since 21 years old, right? Early 90s in the lab at lunch. While everyone was, out to lunch, out having in the cafeteria, I would sit and make and I would have lunch at my desk, which is not allowed, but oh well. And I would make my own.
Yeah.
And what I did is I incorporated active levels, functional levels of every active that I would put in everything else at marketing levels, right? But
Okay.
I wanted it obviously at functional levels.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that when you put everything at functional levels in an emulsion or a cream, which is a mix of oil and water to make a cream, it's not stable because it requires you to bring down the water content by at least 30%. Usually in a cream, you have 10 to 15% room for the actives.
Yeah.
If you go much beyond that, you have an unstable cream, and in a jar it'll separate and it'll just be a mess, right? So this is also, it's not because the industry's evil, it's because we want a lot of benefits, but we only have this much room. So we have to choose some at functional
Yeah.
and a bunch we throw in there at minimal, right?
Yeah. Makes
But
sense.
I didn't care because when I made it at lunch, I would just, in a couple weeks in my fridge and I also didn't include preservative because I would remake it every week or two. In my fridge, it would start to separate and I would just make more, right? Next day at work. But for 30, people say, have you used your product? And I'm like, well, yeah, I've made it every, lunch hour every couple of weeks. And then when I got moved to marketing, I made it at home because it's not that hard. And basically I had functional levels of all the actives over 36 years, but the problem was the formula wasn't stable. So in Sweet Chemistry, we developed the glass airless bottle where when you pump, the dark brown glass protects from air and light. And then as you pump, the bottom comes up. You can see it inside. The bottom comes up, so there's no airspace, so the formula won't fall apart or turn black. So this is how I was able to keep it. And then we put the matrikine peptides. So we're actually creating a little logo right now. No marketing levels allowed. Every ingredient, this is why we show our 1% line. I don't care. Do I think everyone should share every percentage of every single? No, because that's a proprietary formula. So I get that, right? This is your life's long work. You shouldn't have to share but you can at least indicate things that would show credibility, or that would show, what's it called? Integrity.
Yes.
So we put our 1% line, and when you look at our website, our 1% line is there. So at least right, what's below,
What's above.
and without sharing. And then we also declare publicly that we do not use any ingredient at marketing levels, functional levels only. and that is the recommended levels from a supplier. So if a supplier has done some evidence testing, clinical testing, where 2 to 4% is optimum for the clinical testing that they've done, we at least we choose to usually be on sort of the upper echelon of that, but as long as you're between 2 and 4, but not 0.01.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
0.01 is very different.
you're creating your marketing is that your transparency.
That's right.
Yeah.
And without giving away, we're not giving away all our trade secrets or anything, but we're at least declaring publicly, we're taking the pledge that any ingredient that you see and hear is all at functional levels. At least you know that. At least you know it actually exists in our product. And I've seen some other brands, as we start talking about this, they kind of will say it a little bit in social media, like no fairy dust. They also, in the industry, I sort of did this big video which went viral, like 3 point whatever million. We used to call it fairy dusting in the background, right, in R&D. And I've seen some brands that go, yeah, we don't fairy dust, like in a social post quickly, right? I mean, declaring on your website, we do not use marketing levels, right, for any ingredient in our products.
Mm-hmm.
Take out the word complex. There's no need for the word complex. You just say, if you want to say how much peptide you have, share how much peptide you have,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? No need for peptide complex, no need for all this. And if you can do those things, those 3 things just in itself tells me that you are a brand who stands behind your products, who doesn't give away everything, but has integrity and actually knows what you're doing. So my hope, the reason why I love doing things like things like your show is because besides promoting the products, it's also like to put the word out, because
it's informing consumers. It's informing consumers, which is really important, I think, today, is making people think so that we can make good choices for ourselves,
Yes, and make demands on these companies, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be the only one not doing marketing levels. I don't want to be the only one not showing our 1% line. I don't want to be the only one who really knows where I'm sourcing all these ingredients. But if the public starts to say to these brands,
hold on.
Will you declare publicly, right? Will you do this? Then it'll probably move the industry forward.
Well, it is. Yeah, it will. It definitely will if we start to ask questions and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
People should get what they paid for.
Exactly.
People should get
100%.
what they think they're getting in the first place.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
100% I agree.
I wanted to ask you something because you talked about, I'm going to butcher this, matrikines.
Matrikines,
that's your ingredient. That's the... Yes. So you talked about it being in relation to tissue of the lungs and then other organs for transplant, to be able to keep organs intact, to be able to use them more for transplants, right? Did I understand?
So there's 2, very, very close.
Yeah.
I'm always very careful because the organ transplant, the repair, that's a whole system.
It's another thing altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another thing altogether. But to me, it's just the expertise involved in that.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah, no, it's real. It's real stuff. But I wanted to ask you, my question specifically was really, what does that do for the skin? Because you talk about it being in your product. Like, I don't know that we covered what it does, actually.
Totally. Thanks. So yes, first of all, matrikines with a Y is all the peptides extracted from upcycled bovine bone, and in our INCI list, in our ingredient list, it's hydrolyzed cow bone extract.
Okay.
So it's the only product in the world that contains that ingredient.
Okay.
And what that ingredient is over 315 matrikine peptides versus the 1, 2, 3 synthetic ones from the industry that signal repair for the skin to then create more collagen, elastin, fibronectin, etc. So these are the actual signaling molecules that could help you to create more collagen. And I have to be very careful how I say that in the brand, because we're not a drug, right? We're a cosmetic.
Yeah.
So, but the sort of evidence, because there's still work to be done. The evidence that was shown was when they did the study for the lung matrikines, helping to repair the lung tissue, and the skin just being another organ, same with the bone, they were able to show gene expression data where collagen was produced for the lung. And the idea is that if that can do that there, then like there's a very good probability that this is also doing these matrikines for the skin, because the skin is just another tissue, is another organ of the body.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done in that area, but that was the sort of real signal to me, to use the word signal as a pun, that there was actual repair going on.
So true
And so
regeneration.
true regeneration.
True regeneration, not just one sentence out of the book.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I have to be very careful. We are a cosmetic, so
Yeah.
that is something I don't, I was a claims chemist, so I want to be very careful about that.
And it's important
me-
it's important to be careful on claims and stuff. But I like the principle.
is.
I like the
The
principle.
principle.
It
It's the
sounds very
principle.
interesting. So my next
Yeah.
question is this product available in Canada? Being a fellow Canadian.
Yes, yes. So I just got my first employees a
Okay,
few months ago. I
amazing.
was by
Congrats.
myself with some
Congrats.
fractionals. Thank you. I have a co-CEO operations, and so we're moving 3PLs warehouses so that we can sort of ship more officially to international, because of course that requires a lot of customer service.
Yes.
You don't want to make anyone mad, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong in international shipping. So we're working on that now. Within the next few months, we are hopefully officially going to be able to ship internationally.
Okay, good. Well, you'll have to send us information on
Yeah.
that, because we definitely would love to
Interested.
look at that for our
Yes,
Canadian
yes.
audience. Yeah.
Totally. In the meantime, there's been some Canadians who are just like, they're like, we really would like to. So what we've been telling people is to email our support line, support@sweetchemistry.com. And we've just been individually shipping.
Okay.
My team is really like swearing at me because
Yeah. Wow.
it's
It's
becoming a
definitely
whole
something
thing.
that I'm interested in trying, because I really like
yeah.
the principle behind it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll be getting you guys some, we'll be sent. I'm surprised. Like, we should have been sent you some already before this thing, but we'll
Yeah.
send you some for your evaluation, for some
Okay.
feedback
Would love
in
That sounds
return. That'd be
great.
great.
That
Thanks.
sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. What we do all the time at the end of every episode is we have 3 signature questions that we ask, and our Maximilian wants to be part of this.
Mhm.
But if it's okay with you, we'll
Yeah, it's
close
like
out
a-
with these questions.
It's like a rapid fire. So
Okay,
whatever
okay.
first comes to mind.
You go ahead.
What is one skincare myth you wish more people stop believing?
That the more layers, the better.
Okay, I love that.
Okay.
Love that.
So much propylene glycol. Too much propylene glycol.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so many layers of crap. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Okay.
I love it. I love it. What is one thing consumers are consistently wasting money on?
I'm gonna get killed for this. Sheet masks.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
no, I'm sorry.
That's a huge trend right now, is these collagen sheet masks. It's very
I
big.
know.
So
I
I
know.
get that answer. I really do.
Yes. However, very relaxing.
Yes.
Relaxing and fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
But good for socials, right? Good for your
Good for
Instagram
social.
page.
And very
Totally. I'll probably have
aesthetic.
one next year.
Very aesthetic, yeah. If someone wanted to build a simple, effective routine, what are 3 things that actually matter?
Cleansing, simple hydration, even if it's not the expensive stuff, right? Cleansing, simple hydration, and a good occlusive, as long as you're not acneic,
Yeah. Very good. Good.
Thank
Simple.
you so
Thank
you
much.
only need to
so
do
much.
you only have to do a lot.
Pardon me?
It's only if you want to do a lot.
Well,
Like,
I'm a layerer, so I got but I agree with you. I agree with you with it. I just do it because it makes me feel good.
I know, totally. Sometimes it's just something you would like to do, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alec. It's
Thank
been
you
really a
both as well.
pleasure
Thank
chatting
you all
with you.
3.
Yes. Max, you just wanted to be a part of the conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Skin Talks.
If this episode inspired you, taught you something new, or just made you feel seen, please share with someone you love. And if you believe in thoughtful and empowering conversations that help you make better choices for yourself around your beauty and wellness, please rate and review the show. It helps us to grow our community, and we deeply appreciate it. Because this isn't just about skin.
It's about claiming your beauty, feeling strong, informed, and at home in yourself.
See you next week.